Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
A little bit of music from Joe and Woody and the boys of the road crew there. A little bit of road trip inspiration, which we'll put to good use this morning. I want to say hello to everybody who's joining us live. And I'll also give a shout out to those who will be listening to this program a little bit later, as it's a recorded program on Spotify and other major programs as podcast platforms as well. Yeah, we're going to be talking a bit about the recent road trip, some of my discoveries, some of my recommendations, some of my places to tell you to avoid. Hey, thank you. I am glad to be back from the trip too. It was kind of odd. It was our first big road trip, our first fall tour, the Heartland Tour this year, sponsored by the fine folks at Visit Tucumcari. And the Route 66 Association of Kingman, Arizona. The Heartland Tour was our first big road trip since 2019. Things have changed since the apocalypse. The trip was good. It was bad. It was the best trip I've had, and it was also the worst. I was real surprised. 2020, 2021, that's the least amount of traveling I've done since 1959. And so I was really surprised to have a little bit of traveler's anxiety about getting out on the road, because the road's always been an old friend to me. But it was quite an adventure. We started off with rental cars. You know, a few of you probably are aware that there's been some odd rental car stories surfacing. And I had hell. I made a reservation a couple months ago for a compact cargo van or small SUV. On Monday, I was picking it up on a Thursday. On Monday, I received notification that they may not be able to fill my reservation. So it looked like I was going to be driving the old Jeep on this trip, which I'm not afraid of driving this old thing cross country, but I don't push her hard. She's 25 years old. Thursday, they called me and said that I had a vehicle, and went down to pick it up. I had a choice between a big 8-foot-tall ProMaster Dodge van 2500 or a 4-wheel drive diesel pickup. So we drove a monstrous cargo van across country. Didn't help on gas. Anyway, let's talk about the trip. And we're going to have a series of restaurants, things I want to recommend. I made some fantastic discoveries, great new places to recommend, and like I say, some places to avoid. Our first day, we rolled east, mostly I-40. I had a pretty tight schedule, so I couldn't do a lot of things I wanted to do. I was glad to see in Gallup that Angela's Cafe had survived the apocalypse. This is a treasure. Angela's Cafe is located in the former Depot and Harvey House. At least they tore down a lot of the complex years ago, but what has remained, they've renovated. Angela Chavez has put together this delightful cafe. They're only open till about 2 in the afternoon. They do like brunch, lunch kind of deal. There's a wonderful museum going upstairs that also needs to be visited. But the food is superb. The staff is good, knowledgeable. The prices are reasonable. And I had a bacon turkey club sandwich on rye. I was just, every time I've eaten there, it's really, really good. And another one I can recommend, we ate there on the return trip, is Earl's. Both of these are on Route 66, by the way. They're in Gallup. Earl's is really a throwback. It opened in 1947, continues to serve good food, but it's a throwback to when I was a kid in the early 60s, traveling Route 66. In good weather, Indian artisans, Native American artisans, uh, sell their wares on the portico in front. And you can, when you come in, you can ask for vendor, non vendor tables. And if you have a vendor table while you're eating or drinking your coffee, the artists will come in to sell jewelry, kachina dolls, things of that nature. Food was excellent. Absolutely excellent. Had a plate of chili rellenos. The end of day one was Moriarty, New Mexico, and the Sunset Motel. Now, this is the people really take pride in this place, and it shows. Mr. Pogue, he helped his family build this motel in 1959, and it opened in 59. Nice little quaint neon sign there. The place is spotlessly clean, well maintained. Prices are reasonable. Uh, it's just a real treasure. It's a little bit of trivia, like my pa always said, better to fill the head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all. Well. Um, as far as I know, this is the oldest continuously operated single family motel on Route 66. My primary problem with Moriarty, I have yet to find a good restaurant with good food, reasonably priced, decent eats. I found some bizarre places. This last time I found a little cafe that was still open. It was a little bit later, and it was not very good. It was a cafe and a truck stop. It just wasn't very good, and it was way overpriced for a couple sandwiches. But when you're desperate, and I try never to, my dearest friend and I, we try never ever to do fast food while we're on the road or chain restaurants unless starvation is imminent. And then we'll consider it. On the way back home, I've been hearing a lot of good things about Earl's Motor Court in Winslow, Arizona. So on the return trip, we took advantage of the opportunity. I generally, if I'm doing business in Albuquerque, Grants, Gallup, I don't stop in Winslow overnight. It's just too close to home. But this one, I was driving in from Tucumcari, and I could have made it home, but it's about a 750-mile drive. That's a hard push for a day. So I took advantage of Earl's Motor Court. Oh, my. I wrote a blog post. You can find it on Jim Hinckley's America. It's my latest blog post about Earl's. I was so impressed. It was an absolute throwback time capsule. Man, as soon as I pulled into the parking lot, the clock, the time just rolled backwards. It was 1964 all over again, just as I remembered. And the owners of the property, Angela and Bloss, and of course the dog Buffalo, they're so passionate about this property. And you know, if you're looking for the Holiday Inn or a 5-star resort or the Marriott, this isn't it. But if you're looking for a basic, good, clean place, an absolute living time capsule, Earl's Motor Court, Winslow, Arizona, definitely, definitely try that one. The next day, we continued our trip east. We were headed for the Miles of Possibilities conference in Pontiac, Illinois. But we'll take this kind of one step at a time, and I'll share some of this with you. And we'll do this over a series. Every Sunday, I'll share a few updates and a few things. I'll mix it in with some of the other updates that we have. We ended up in McLean, Texas on the next night. I generally run to Shamrock. Great place there in Shamrock's the Western Motel across from the U-Drop Inn. But didn't make it this time. We did McLean, Texas. And McLean is well worth exploring. It's not a true ghost town, but boy, I tell you, she's empty in a lot of spots. Population is about half of what it was in 1950, and it shows. But what's there? There's still a vibrant pulse. There's still really some stuff there. We stayed at the Sunset Motel. This was my first opportunity to give that one a try. Motel was built about 1956. Angela Moreland and her family have been putting the Sunset Motel, Cactus Inn Motel in McLean. They've been putting the Cactus Inn Motel back together and doing a fine job. They've also got an RV park. As a bonus, the Red River Steakhouse is right next door, and that's superb. I highly can recommend the Red River Steakhouse for dinner, and the Cactus Inn Motel in McLean is an overnight stay. Now, here's where it gets interesting. McLean is home to the Barbed Wire Museum and the Route 66 Museum there in Texas. And perhaps the most surprising thing about the Barbed Wire Museum, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And as a little tidbit, the museum is housed in an old brassiere factory. McLean used to be known unofficially as the uplift capital of America. Do with that as you please. This one came as a real surprise to me. Angela Moreland has also opened the Cactus Rose Tap House downtown on Main Street next to the City Hall. I won't spoil the surprise. I've posted pictures on our Instagram account and on our Facebook page. What a surprise. And what's even more surprising, this tumble down old building, it's an open air. The roof had literally collapsed. They cleaned that out. So they made the front half, they left it open air, made it a patio. And then the back half that used to be the storage shipping area of this building. The building was built probably sometime early 1900s. That is your main bar area. I was very surprised to learn that this was the first liquor establishment, first place to sell beer or alcohol in McLean, Texas, in its entire history. I don't know how that happened, but that was really interesting. And while you're there for breakfast the next morning, before you leave town, check out the Chuck Wagon. Nice little restaurant downtown. Red brick streets, but most everything down through there, empty storefronts. She's a well-worn old town, but it's really worth checking out McLean, Texas, and I can recommend all of those locations there. On the return trip, we made Tucumcari our overnight stop. And you got Tucumcari, one of the pride and joys there. Tucumcari, don't judge a book by its cover, especially if you come in from the west end of town. Boy, it looks like an apocalyptic movie set. A burned out motel and a long abandoned truck stop. But the town I tell you, it's something. The real claim to fame, of course, is its time capsule motels. You have the iconic Blue Swallow Motel, probably one of the most famous motels on Route 66. Very lovingly restored, well-maintained, built about 1939, as I recall. Excellent choice for lodging, but it is a 1939 motel. And so there again, if you're looking for the Marriott, that's not it. Motel Safari, Larry Smith there in Tucumcari. Excellent job on that one. And that one's a 1959 time capsule. For my money, where I usually end up is David Brenner's down at the Roadrunner Lodge. This is kind of a unique property. The west side of the property is a single-story L-shaped complex. That dates to the 1940s. David's plan is, and he is working on this as we speak, that section of the motel will be restored as a 1940s property, of course with modern amenities. In the 60s, that motel was joined to a new motel, big two-story with funky roofs and all. And the whole complex became Leatherwood Manor. Well, David has restored the 1960s portion of the motel as the Roadrunner Lodge. And it's a literal, he's gone to such lengths to make this a time capsule. Of course, with the modern amenities, but it is superb. You step into the room and there's a reproduction vintage radio playing Dean Martin and tunes from that period. You got board games like Twister, things on the table. The furniture is mid 1960s. Beds are excellent, comfortable. So I can highly recommend all three of those: Roadrunner Lodge, Blue Swallow Motel, or Motel Safari. Two great restaurants to recommend there. Kicks on 66 is my go-to place for breakfast when I'm there, and Dell's on 66. Good dinners there. Very, very good dinners. Enjoyed it a lot. And for your evening's entertainment while you're in Tucumcari, check out the Odin Theater. It's been upgraded, updated, cleaned up, painted, given a bit of a facelift. But this simple little theater, it's not a movie palace, but it's nice. It opened in 1935. And of course, there's also Carlson Coffee down on East Smith Street, which is by the depot. The depot has been beautifully restored. There's a great railroad museum there. And wander around downtown. The old section of Tucumcari, a few blocks off Route 66, the historic heart. She's war at the heel. A lot of empty storefronts, but some great surprises. One of them is the Princess Theater. It opened as the H&H Theater in 1916. It got a pretty good facelift in 1921 and again in the mid-1930s. It's got a beautiful streamlined Moderne facade, original ticket booth. It's been closed for decades. But that's an example of the type of opportunities that somebody, who's an urban pioneer that wants to really get something more out of life than a job. Tucumcari, New Mexico might be someplace you can consider. Come pay them a visit and see what you think. Check out their website, visit tucumcarinm.com. And so Tucumcari is on my list. As we were heading east from McLean, I had some things to do down a little further south. We crossed Oklahoma. Ended up in Russellville, Arkansas. I gotta say this is bad news. I stay at Best Western when we travel. We've earned enough points for a free room, and I always try to find something good to say about every restaurant and every motel we stay. There's always usually something good. On TripAdvisor, I have written to date 2 condemning reviews. In all my years of travel, all my years of using TripAdvisor, I've written 2 bad reviews. And one of them was the Best Western Inn at 2326 North Arkansas Avenue in Russellville, Arkansas. I was very surprised, very disappointed. It had a lot of problems. It's an older property. That obviously doesn't bother me. As you can tell, it's one of the places I stay. Earl's Motor Court, the Roadrunner Lodge. I like the older places. But it's been given quick facelift here and there, but poorly. The first problem I encountered was a massive, we didn't notice at the time, and it was late. We had bugs. Check the bedding, check the sinks. If you do stay there, insist on checking the room first. Lots of ants and other problems. Then the real kick in the teeth was the next morning. I went to check out, and the desk clerk wasn't with the program at all. I'm not going to cast aspersions, but I have my suspicions. Yeah, but anyway, I got my bill, and there was almost a $100 charge for long distance phone calls. And she couldn't do anything about it. And so I have been working on resolution of this one. So all I'm going to tell you is buyer beware on the Best Western Inn in Russellville, Arkansas. Okay, well, next week, please invite your friends. We will continue the adventure, have more places to share. I've got to tell you about Rushville, Illinois, and I'll do that in future programs. What an absolutely amazing little town. I just was so overwhelmed with the things I found there. A little bit of a teaser for you. Invite your friends, and we'll do this again next week. And don't forget, the program will be archived on Podbean, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. I will, and please share that as well with your friends that are planning trips, a little bit of travel recommendation. Also on the trip, I signed a bunch of books. So you can find signed copies of my books now at the Pulaski County Visitor Center in St. Robert, Missouri, the Wagon Wheel Motel, Cuba, Missouri, Connie's shop there. Boy, she stocked up on about a dozen of my different titles. They're all signed right now. The Route 66 Museum Complex in Pontiac, Illinois. I'll be signing books probably tomorrow or the next day down at the Mojave Museum of History and Arts in Kingman, Arizona. And in the next week or so, I'll make sure there's signed copies of books up in Oatman as well. Don't forget, we'll be back to our regular schedule. And I want to apologize to everyone about last week. There was no podcast. Some things were just out of my control. And it was an absolute comedy of errors. I had equipment problems, microphone issue. And then I couldn't get internet access. It was going in and out. So I was going to run the podcast off my phone, and AT&T had an outage. So that didn't work. Tomorrow morning, our other podcast, which is a recorded program, be on Spotify, Libsyn, major platforms. Car Talk from the Main Street of America. I think you're going to like this one as well. I got a little something special for you. Didn't do a program last week because I was on the road and we had some issues. Won't go into details. It's not real important, but I want to thank everyone who did reach out and inquire about my dearest friend. She is on the mend. But that was a bit of a problem, to say the very least, a very worrisome situation. But we're back. We're back in the saddle and we're going. Don't forget, Decade with Jim, my series about daily posts on reflections and places I'm going and doing, taking you along for the ride, sharing the adventure on Instagram. And as long as Facebook lets me, I'll share it on Facebook as well. I filed another complaint with Facebook. I still have no response. The Jim Hinckley's America Facebook page has been locked since February, and I've yet to get a response why or how to fix it. I have followed all their steps, called, submitted the paperwork. No go. But you can still find me at James Hinckley on Facebook. Don't forget our website. That'll be updated this week with new recommendations as fast as I can. JimHinkley'sAmerica.com. And we'll give a shout out, of course, to our sponsor today, Visit Tucumcari, New Mexico. That website is visittucumcarinm.com. I want to thank them for being a sponsor of this program and of Jim Hinckley's America and the recent Heartland Tour. And with that said, I'd like to say, if your community, your business, or your event, you need some promotion, we need sponsors. We need sponsors for this program. We need sponsors for Car Talk from the Main Street of America. And we need sponsors for some of the other Jim Hinckley's America programs. And we guarantee you a good bang for your advertising dollar. Before I button this up, I want to give a shout out to everybody. Good morning, Maggie and Keith and Mr. Roadrunner, everybody who's here this morning. God bless. Good morning. Well, I am glad I'm home too. I missed the open road, but I'm glad to be back. I'll enjoy sharing our Sunday mornings. Before we button this up and bid adios, do we have any questions that I can answer for you? You can either call in or you can just type in your comments. Call-ins are always welcome. It's an interactive program. So, what do you think? Did you enjoy this morning? Very good. Well, I don't get much into the spirit of Halloween very often, but there are a lot of Halloween events going on. Trunk or Treat downtown Kingman. The boys from Chillin' on Beale putting that on, I believe, tomorrow night. I'll check on that and see if I can get that up for you. Well, if we have no further questions, ideas, suggestions, well, in that case, I'm going to bid you folks adios and get myself in gear, try to make up for some lost time. And we'll do this again next week. And I'll get back on my schedule for blog post. Like, say, Earl's Motor Court. Take a look at my latest blog post. Give you an insight into the mind of Jim Hinckley, as scary as that is. But I think you'd like it. My friends, I'm so glad that we got together again. And until then, vaya con Dios, mi amigos. We'll send this off with some music from Joe and Woody and the boys of the road crew.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.